And we're going to go ahead and start, and if you'll bow with me, I'm going to start us off with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just praise you for this beautiful day, and we thank you for the rain and the sun, and also for just an amazing program tonight that it really is going to talk about your amazing creation of the bees and how important they are and how much we need to be aware of them and aware of the whole situation of preserving them. So thank you for this time that we have, and just bless us, bless every person in this room tonight, and bless their homes and their families. Bless those that are still on their way and help them to find a parking place. And we love you, and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, and thank you all for coming tonight. So I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces, so that's exciting. And I'm Barbara Udit. I'm the president of the Gulf Breeze Area Historical Society, and we have Jim will be introducing our program, but we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll rise, and Bill Parsons over here is going to lead us off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks. Okay. So now I'm going to ask our Vice President, Jim Cox, to come up, and he's going to introduce our program tonight.
I'm delighted to introduce Kevin and Teresa Yates. Okay, they've been working with bees now for about a dozen years. Okay, harvesting the honey, and they got some samples up here for us, and they have a trailer in the parking lot. After the meeting, you want to buy some more honey. Okay, and I asked Kevin. I says, in an average day, how many bee stings do you get? And he said, oh, a dozen or more. And I said, and you do this voluntarily? Kevin and Teresa.
It's funny you mentioned that about the bee stings, Jim. It's funny you mentioned that about the bee stings. Johns Hopkins is doing research on breast cancer with bee venom, and they're having very favorable results. So,
and it's honeybee venom, but they're not finding the same results with other bee venoms. So it's very interesting. Yeah. So I might be safe because I've gotten my share of things too.
I grew up in a farming community in Ohio, and before you call me a Yankee, I'm a card carrying Hatfield. So anyway, I drove a farm tractor, and we moved down here, we had a garden, and it just wasn't doing well. And so her family owned a cabinet shop, and they, before he retired, he built us one of these. It's called a top bar hive. It doesn't look like a standard hive. And the way it works is they hang. It actually hangs. That's why they call it a top bar. It's literally a top bar across it. It kind of looks like a coffin. There's some benefits and drawbacks to them. It was simple to build, and we used it for
a couple years.
Yeah, we kept it going for a couple of years, and then I don't know, I guess it died off.
It's really good for if you want a small amount of honey and you just want bees for a garden, because it's really complex. If you want to try and extract the honey, you have to cut the comb out and actually strain it. Then the bees have to rebuild all of it. So, it worked really well for us short term. And then he decided he wanted to expand and have more bees. So we started using the more traditional Langstroth hives. That's the boxes that you typically see in most apiaries.
It made a huge difference with your garden.
It did, actually. It did. It was much more productive. But it was funny because, you'd think you plant what the bees want and they're going to go right there. Most of the time, I didn't see them on the plants. They would take off and go elsewhere, but the plants actually did produce more.
but we don't have a garden anymore.
Yeah, now we're so busy with bees, we don't have a garden anymore. And so, yeah, after we got the top bar hive, we had to get bees, and him being from Ohio.
We ordered bees, we just looked it up on the internet, and this was actually in the county I'm from. It was quite a coincidence, and she was reading the address, I'm like, I was in another room, I said, I know where that is. But it was really strange. Unfortunately, the man that owned the company died, and we stopped by there when I was home one time, and they just all hives were abandoned. The kids didn't want to take care of them. This is
That's when you order bees from Waldo, Ohio, they show up at the post office, and the postmaster calls you and says, would you please come and get this package of bees?
I've never seen-
This buzzing package, he said.
yeah, they called me, they said, Mr. Yates, I said, yeah, they said post office. I'm like, okay. They said, do you order bees? I said, yeah. I said, can you go and get them right now? I said, oh, I'm on my way. And that was the first time we'd order them. This is how they come. That's 3 pounds of bees, roughly 20,000 bees. And the top, where's the queen?
The circle on top, the can.
I don't have the feeder.
Yeah, it is,
Queen.
she's right under it.
Yeah, they package the queen so she doesn't get hurt when they're shipping them. They ship them like overnight. They're shipped with a screen like that because they get really hot. So that's the way they come. And when I went over to the post office, I couldn't get out of there. People kept talking to me about it. The post office wanted me gone. All the customers were interested in that. So back to that. That's how they come. I'm going to brag for a minute. I have an advanced degree in science, and I'm overeducated. I'm going somewhere with this, really. And so, ladies, what do you think I did when these came? I called her. And she's successful and overeducated in her own right, and she said, dump them in the hive. That's what it says online. They didn't like that.
I should have said, put your suit on and dump them in the
I
hive.
was barehanded, I had a polo shirt on, polo shirt shorts, and they did not like that. They, I got stung probably a dozen times, but live and learn. There's also a thing with swarms. Everybody says that swarms are very docile because they don't have a home to defend. That's when they're out. That's the way they reproduce. We have babies, they swarm. So one colony becomes 2, that's how they replicate. So once in a while, they'll land somewhere people don't want them, I get calls. Well, I believed all the stuff I read on the interweb, and it said they're very docile when they're swarming because they don't have a home to protect, they don't have any honey or babies. So I thought I'd walk up there and shake them into a box. They didn't like that either. So, now I will, if they're hanging on a branch, and I can tell when I walk up to them, their temperament. Each hive is a family. It's a queen and her daughters, anywhere from 60 to 150,000 bees. So I can tell by the temperament when I walk up how they are. If they're really mild, and she's with me, and they're hanging off a branch, I'll just clip the branch and put them in a box. And they really don't seem to be disturbed very much. Sometimes I walk up and it doesn't go that way. So then I put my full suit on and get the smoker, like you see. And this is what's hanging off. That's a swarm. That's probably 60,000 bees, and the queen's in the center. And they're typically just resting. They'll swarm from a hive, and they'll go typically less than 100 yards, and then they'll rest. And if the queen comes out, they'll go on the real swarm, and that's up to 16 miles, which is typically less than 5. The queen has a hard time flying. She's usually too heavy to fly. So for a few days before they swarm, and they plan this out, they will start starving the queen. They won't feed her because she can't feed herself. The attendants do everything for her. So they'll start starving her so she can fly. Okay, this is a cutout. This is what I usually find. And see, this is the comb hanging vertically. And we'll usually find that usually between the first and second floor. And we find them out on the beach a lot on pilings. We pulled down I pulled down a 4x8 piece of plywood, and it was half full. Yeah, it was, which way did that run? It was,
Vertical bay.
it was joist to joist, and 8 feet long and 3 bays wide.
Wow.
And they've been there for a long time. This is right down here on, the condo's right down here. I did that like last year, I think.
That was a tree that was down on the left.
Okay.
And then up in Milton, last July. That's fun, getting in a bee suit and getting out there in the middle of July to cut out bees. But he did it, and then the guy was nice enough, he had a lift, so that made it a little bit easier, not having to climb up and down the ladder 100 times, so.
That's a tree, was that a Joe's? That was up in Laurel Hill, a swarm brought it down, and they saw the bees, so we went up there, and the way we do that is, I use a chainsaw and cut a window in it. And then I have a vacuum where I can vacuum them out, and it doesn't kill them, it doesn't injure them. And then we cut the comb out, bring the comb home, and then we reconstruct a new hive for them. So we take that comb, we rubber band it into frames, and we put the bees in there, and they'll build, that's how we rehome them, they'll build a new home. Yeah, we ran into a problem with, we did everything wrong in the top bar hive. I just dumped the bees in there, but they lived, they stayed, believe it or not. We did everything wrong. And then we started having a little success, and state regulates how many bees you can have by the size of your property. So we started having too many bees, I didn't have anywhere to put them. So we ended up, I bought a trailer, and we built it to be basically a portable beehive stand. And the reason I did that was because several years ago at Garcon, when they had the fire out there, East Hill lost, I don't know how many hives they had out there. The East Hill Honey had hives out there, they couldn't move them in time. Because the hive can weigh several hundred pounds, and you just can't move them in a timely fashion. So I started building these trailers. We found a couple places to put them.
He builds his own hives now, instead of purchasing them. And so just kept building boxes and putting them on the trailer, and had a friend down by the zoo who had property and wanted some bees, and so we parked them down there for a few years, and until he moved away, then they had to be relocated. But they did very well on the mobile bee stand.
They're on a friend's property, and I'm envious. They're right by a lake, got big oak trees. That's where they are now. The paintings on there, we tried everything to keep track of the hives. And when I said Teresa's professional, she's a nurse practitioner, and she keeps notes on the bees like patient charts. She really does.
Which isn't necessarily good. He gets really mad when it's out there, we're hot, that I'm taking too much time to, jot everything down or dictate it into my phone.
But what we figured out was we started painting themes on this is a brood box. These are all brood, well, this is a brood box. This is a brood box, that's a super. The brood box is where the queen lives, lays her eggs, and all the baby bees are. That's the brood box on the bottom. So
Excuse me, is that brood?
Brood.
Oh,
B-R-O-O-D.
thank you,
Yeah,
thank
brood.
you.
So what we started doing is after trying to name them, number them, put tags on them, we started painting themes on them. And that's so, if we're talking and I say there's something wrong with Starry Nights, she knows exactly which box I'm talking about.
There you go.
It takes a little time to paint them, but it works really well.
Great.
Other challenges.
No.
Everybody's familiar with Breezer Bear, right?
Yeah, that was a real problem. We had twins I think they were twins, in our pecan tree. They were up there for hours. We had an attack, several years ago. She thought it was vandals because it was, homecoming at Gulf Breeze. I'm like, nobody knows we have them. Why would they tip over the hives? And she's like,
Because it was homecoming weekend, and it was right around Halloween, and I thought, those little snots, they came trick-or-treating, little teenagers they saw our sign about bees, and they snuck in the backyard, and I hope they got the crap stuck out of them when they did it.
Then a week later,
No, 2 days later.
2 days later, he came back.
Yeah, it was
That's not pine, that's cypress.
Oh my.
And he took a bite out of it. And you can see where he chewed on the lids, and we had 6 hives at that time, we lost 3 of them. I think the queens either killed the queens or the queens just got mad and left. So we put up an electric fence. When we called FWC, they said that's the best thing to do. That works really well. Unfortunately, we had a friend's fence go out, and it crashed all of her hives and was done at climbing their chicken coop and killed her chickens, and it's about 200 yards from here. And because their controller went out. What we found works the best is ratchet strapping. And that works because bears are lazy. We had one down by the zoo, and he started to mess with it, and it was too heavy, so it was all cattywampus, and we could see that he tried to pick it up, and then he said it was too much, he walked off and left it alone. So that's the best thing we found is ratchet strap them down.
So our next challenge was what we're gonna do with all of the honey now from several hives in 2 different locations. So we started doing markets. Is it not working? Yeah, so we're just setting up at local farmer markets, and then during the holidays, there's different festivals. So in the fall, we do several church festivals. We did the Jolly Holiday Market here, which is always a nice market. So if y'all like our honey, we're gonna give samples today. You can find us here at the Jolly Holiday Market comes along. The problem is, honey is heavy, and my friend Tricia, who loves to help me at the market but doesn't want to carry the crates of honey in, agrees. Carrying crates of honey is backbreaking, so that's where we decided to come up with the bee buggy.
We right before COVID, about the time the bridge got whacked, we were thinking about opening a storefront. And I just was really, really against it. I'm like, hey, I gotta make $3,500 to break even. I didn't want to do that, so I thought about it for a while. Well, I said her family owned a cabinet shop. Her brother retired. That's a 1990 Wells Cargo trailer. And we traded him some beehives for it, and we ended up rebuilding it. One of the companies, I talked to 2 or 3 different companies. They told me it couldn't be done. They said because of the type of framing it was back then, it was metal, they couldn't do anything. I said, watch. And so yeah, once I figured out how to do it, it went pretty quick. We put a window, a door in it. So that's what it started as. That's just old plywood he had in there to keep the cabinets from getting scuffed when he was delivering them. What I ended up doing was scabbing 2x4s to the steel frame and framing it just like a house. So it added extra strength to it, and it didn't have a whole lot of weight.
So we reached out to the Department of Agriculture because we figured if we were gonna be using this bee buggy at markets and such, we needed to find out what the rules were. Well, that was another challenge, to find anybody who really knows anything about beekeeping and honey and rules. But he finally found somebody and figured it out, and so he kept working on the buggy, following their rules on the triple sinks and the wiring and the special walls that you have to be able to wipe down, and everything has to be stainless.
But keep in mind, both of us have worked with BPR since the early 80s. We couldn't figure out how to navigate this because nobody knew what we were trying to do. We talked to one department, they'd send us to somebody else. They said, oh no, you're supposed to be talking to them. And I don't know how long that went on.
Months.
And so finally I found somebody who there was some common sense. She said, look, you do what you have to do, but make sure whatever you do meets code. I went, fair enough. So we decided what we had to have, what we needed, and started installing all that. And I've seen some other stuff that wasn't done nearly as well. Like, if that passed, I'm okay. We put in a cypress ceiling our tongue-and-groove cypress ceiling. Our daughter calls those my man cabinets. And then I was looking online for lights, and I found a company that does lights for high-end car detailing, like Lamborghinis and Maseratis. Something about the shape of the lights helps them see the car better. But they're usually like a grid of like 4 by 6. So I called the guy or emailed him. I said, I don't need that much, and he was very nice. He put me back together a package and sent it to me, and we get a lot of compliments on that. That
It looks like a honeycomb.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm
Exactly.
pretty proud of that. That looks pretty cool. I like that.
It's beautiful.
Yep. Then we had to take it and get it wrapped because the 1980s Americraft cabinet logo just wasn't gonna fit.
It was funny. We went to get it wrapped, and they told me afterwards they didn't. All they saw was the outside when it was like that, and they're like, "Why is he wrapping this POS?" And then they opened the doors like, "Oh, because the inside didn't match the outside." We have air conditioning, heat pump.
And there it is set up at one of the markets downtown.
So we use it she sells out of it at markets and other stuff. I use it for the cutouts. I was talking about the bee cutouts. A cutout is literally when I cut them out of a house, a wall or a ceiling. So I use it for cutouts. She uses it for sales, and then we use it for bee yard maintenance. Because I said I have the trailers at different places. Those trailers have 12 or 14 hives on them. So we take the trailer and we can park next to them, and we're actually licensed to spin the honey right there if we want to. We eventually did get licensed by agriculture or
Yeah,
who else?
Department of Agriculture.
We have like 3 different licenses.
They're the main one. And then the next issue was what to do with all the beeswax, because when we pull the honey, the frames are waxed. You cut off the wax cappings, spin the honey out of the frame, leave the rest of the wax comb there for the bees to fill back up again, but you've got the wax cappings. And so he will filter it, and he makes some beautiful candles that are very popular, especially, at the markets, the fall markets and Christmas stuff. But we also make lip balms. We went to the North American Honeybee Expo in January up in Louisville, Kentucky last year. And they have the honey show where you can put your honey in for competition with everybody else. But they have all these different categories. There's a honey cake, then lip balms and all that. So I was like, well, I'm gonna put one of my lip balms in there. And so I took it and I peeled the label off and wiped the glue off. And he started laughing. He says, you don't understand. These people that compete, they've been doing it. Their families have been doing it for decades. They take this stuff very seriously. There's no way you're going to win. Well, I won 3rd place. And it happens to be, if anybody wants, it's the pink one here. So be sure to grab one. We make lotion bars, foot balm, soaps. Our soaps we make with honey and beeswax, the scented wax melts, an all-natural vapor rub, and the reusable food wraps. So we make a lot more of that in the fall. So that gave us something to do with all of the beeswax that we were getting.
And she was talking about the wax. The way it works is, you've all seen the frame, the bee frame, right, with comb in it. You shave off both sides of it to put it in the centrifuge. Well, that falls into a bin. So there's wax and honey, and it drains. Once it's drained as much as it can, then I take the cappings and I give them to the bees, and they clean it up even more. When they're done, it's almost absolutely dry. So they get it all back, but the frames, I use a bread knife and I slice it off, and that leaves a very clean surface for them. We don't take all the wax. All we take are the cappings. That's a byproduct. So the wax, there's wax left in the frame, in the frames. Am I making sense? We give those back to the bees also, and they clean that up even more. Then we store them, so the next time we use them, the bees don't have to build that comb. It's already there. And it saves them time and effort and a lot of energy. And then she started putting it in different stores.
And we have porch pickup, so on the little bottles it'll give you has our address. We have a little honey hutch there. Feel free to swing by. Little cash boxes on the left, honor system.
questions?
I have a question. Okay, if somebody calls you, they have a swarm of bees, so they think, and you go out there and it's wasps. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, we have them send pictures before we go out, yeah, and we'll get a call and somebody says, I think I have a swarm of bees, and then we say, send a picture, and it's 10 bees. I'm like, well, a swarm is usually 60. There's no doubt it's a swarm of bees when you see it. There's about 60,000 individuals in it. It's not easy to mistake, but yeah, we get calls about wasps. And actually, bees and wasps are enemies. Wasps kill bees, especially these new big Asian hornets start clipping their heads off. When the bees come into land, they're sitting there, they just kill them. Bees are more closely related to ants when you take the whole society into account. In fact, we have found that one that I was talking about on stilts. There were the honeybees up above, and then there was a V-board ceiling underneath. There were carpenter ants living on the V-board. They were separated by a few inches, but it was the ants were probably keeping other pests out, and they were getting some honey, and they weren't fighting with each other. But yeah, when I pulled it down, there was a ginormous ant colony in there. You will never see bees and wasps coexisting, ever.
What does it normally cost when you buy what's necessary to start a hive?
Altogether?
Or just to order the bees?
Well, both, actually. In other words, if you had nothing and wanted to start, what would it cost you? And then when you buy a load of bees, 60,000 bees.
Yeah, so a package of bees with a queen is $180 typically. And I mark the queen with a little magic marker, paint marker, so that it's easier to see her. And I cage her so that she's safe, to get to your backyard. And then to get the hives where it's got the bottom board, a brood box, and a super that will have the honey with the lid, depending on where you buy it and what quality of wood, it's anywhere from $120 to $200. So roughly $400 to start.
Is there such thing as competing beehives? So if you have a beehive and a couple neighbors down, they have a beehive, do they switch up or anything like that?
Not typically. The only time you'll see non-resident bees at a hive is if they're trying to rob it out. So if you have a hive that's weaker, the stronger hives, especially this time of year right now, we're in what's called a dearth, where there's not a lot of pollen or nectar for them. And if there is a weak hive, they will go in and try and steal the honey. But usually, they say usually, the bees will only stay in their own colony. But there's been times where we've had a colony that was failing, the queen died, and I'll take the bees and shake them in the yard, and they go and join the other hives.
One of the bees have several jobs. From the moment they hatch, they turn around and clean up their cells, and they clean up other cells. They do that for about 3 or 4 days. And then they feed the babies for several more days. One of their jobs is guards. And what they do is they hang upside down from the entrance like vampires. So you look in there and the bees are looking at you, and they do that so the arriving bees don't get impeded. The way they know if they belong in the colony is by smell with their antenna. Because each queen has her own scent. And that's what runs most of the stuff in the colony. So if a bee comes in and doesn't smell like your sister, and when I say sisters, it's because a hive is a queen and then 90% females, and they're all daughters, and then 10% drones, the males. So if you don't smell like our queen, and you're not bearing gifts, sometimes if they're carrying nectar or pollen, the other bees will let them in. But if they think they'll attack them and kill them, they'll fight. And one of the other funny jobs, I didn't realize this, is a mortuary bee. They have bees that carry away the dead, because usually they die outside of the hive, because they can't make it back, their wings are too tattered. But some of them will die in the hive. Well, they have bees. So one day, this bee flew by and was carrying another bee. And I said, what's it? And it flew quite a ways and dropped it. And I told her about it. She says, oh yeah, there's a mortuary bee. Really? That's kind of interesting. forage, that's the very last phase of their life is when they forage. And,
How long do they live there? Typical bee?
the queen lives up to 5 years, typically ours live about 2 years. The workers, depending on the season, live anywhere from 30 to 45 days. And what limits their life is their wings become too tattered, they can't lift their body weight anymore, and then they're doomed. We know how old our queens are if we mark them. There's a 5-year rotation in colors. So this year is blue, so any queens we have this year, any new queens, we catch her, and we'll mark her back with a paint pen. This year's blue. And last year was green. Yeah, so if we find a green dot queen, come to green dot, we got a green dot on the rack. If we find a green dot, we know she was from last year. And we typically see them living about 2 years. I don't think we've had any over 3.
Are there any kind of pests that move into the hives to?
Yeah.
Yeah, if the colony is weak, if it's a strong colony, it's usually not an issue. But if the colony is weak, you can get small hive beetles, which are just what they sound like, teeny tiny beetles that can get in there and take over and just destroy it. To avoid that from happening, we put beetle traps, which is just a little plastic box that has holes in the top, and we put vegetable oil in it, and we put it in the top frames. And then the bees will actually chase them up to the top and try and corral them, and so they crawl in there to escape and then can't get out because of the oil.
They do, they hurt them.
They do.
They absolutely do, they hurt the beetles.
They do. And if, unfortunately, the beetles, damage the hive enough that it's dying off, then wax moths come in and just tear up the actual wax comb that the bees have built, and it's disgusting. You don't want to hear what it does to it. It's pretty gross. Yeah. So.
Do hives occur out on Santa Rosa Island?
I'm sure they're out there, but I've never heard or seen.
Well, usually they're going to be in a tree or in somebody's home in the wall. They could go out there. I just don't think there's enough trees to attract them to come out there. I have been out on the beach there and seen them foraging on some of the little flowers on the dunes. So I know they go out there, but I haven't heard of anybody having bees or having a swarm. The issue there would be, a hurricane trying to move them, or, what was the one last year that hit central South Florida? I follow a lot of beekeepers on Instagram, and there was one that, they showed videos of their hives just floating in the waters there. It was.
They can easily fly across the sound. They can fly up to 5 miles. And people ask me how I know that. Well, they put a little tiny GPS transponder on some bees. I think you update it, and they track them to see how far they flew. So they know exactly how far they can fly. They easily fly 5 miles.
How far do they usually fly, like for the flowers?
As far as they need to.
As far as just, okay.
Yeah, if they find something close by, that's where they'll go, and then they come back, and then they do what's called the waggle dance, and it looks like they're having a seizure. They dance this way and then that way and wiggle and do spin around, and they're communicating with the other bees, saying this is where the nectar is. And then this one over here will do her dance, and they'll taste her nectar, and they'll decide which nectar they like, and I like yours better, so I'm following your dance, and that's where I'm gonna go. And so they'll just keep going until they find something they like, and then come back and tell everybody else about it.
So around here, honey is basically 2 flavors. We have really light, and that's the spring, really dark, and that's the fall. They are so particular that if something happens, if I break a jar of honey or something, and it's spring, and I put the dark stuff out for them, they won't eat it. They'll ignore it. They really will. They're that finicky.
Yeah.
They're funny little creatures.
Are there certain kind of flowers and things that we could plant that would attract them?
Yeah, there are, and they just Google, and then I tell people always go with the native plants, that's best, and then there's native plants that are good nectar sources for bees. But yeah, go look it up online, because like blueberries they like, but it's not really a good food for them. So, and I'm having a variety, because I say right now we're kind of in a dearth, so if you have a variety that's blooming periodically, periodically, you have something all year long for them, that's the best way to go.
It's kind of interesting. So we're both overeducated. We sent our honey in to get it DNA tested.
Doesn't Debbie know?
For what purpose?
I'd like to ask a very, I feel like an idiot asking it.
No such
But
thing.
how does a queen become a queen? Why doesn't, what designates her?
Okay, so the previous queen is going around laying eggs. And for some reason, the colony has decided either to swarm or to depose the queen. And so they decide to raise a queen. So they take an egg that's less than 3 days old, and all eggs are fed royal jelly for the first 3 days of their life. It's sort of like what our pituitary gland produces. Once they've picked an egg, they've decided it's going to be a queen, they keep feeding that egg royal jelly, and all the other eggs get honey, and that's what dictates the change, and they build a bigger cell. So when we look in, we look for queen cells, and they look like a peanut hanging on the frame. But depending on where the queen cell is, tells you if they're going to swarm or if they're going to kill the current queen or replace her. And they do it for various reasons. Her laying pattern can be bad over time if she wears out. She can be injured. Usually it's, I don't know, because of...
Mainly they're running out of space, and so it's time to produce a baby swarm, so they start to produce new queens. They start starving her. She leaves with about 1/3 of the colony, goes with her, and then a new queen hatches. Several new queens hatch, and then they fight it out, and whoever wins gets to be the queen.
One of the other...
Die, or do the others die, or do they become something else?
She kills them. Yes.
So, yeah.
How do bees and butterflies coexist? Are they
No
in?
problem at all.
They're not in competition for the flower.
Now, here's an interesting observation. Has nothing to do with politics. When I'm feeding them back the wet cappings, so there's a bunch of honey in there, I see wasps, yellow jackets, carpenter bees, honey bees, and they're all there getting their food and they're all fine. And it probably has to do with there's a lot of food, so there's no real reason to fight, and they're away from their homes, they're less likely to fight too. One of the other things about a queen bee is she has a smooth stinger, and so she can sting repeatedly. It's different than the worker bees have a barbed stinger.
So is it true that if you have allergies, you should eat honey from where you live? Because that's going to treat the allergy that you have here?
Yes, because like when we sent ours off to be DNA tested, the report came back telling us, what percent of what plants, so we knew what our bees were going to, was it the popcorn trees or hibiscus, which, thank you Garden Club ladies, they love the hibiscus around here. But our honey is primarily oak honey, which was interesting because oak trees do not have flowers.
Right.
So when I got the report back, I'm like, how is that oak honey? Well, the acorns fall off the trees, and the little worms get in there, and then a real sweet honeydew comes out of the acorn, and that is what the bees collect and take back and turn into honey. Yeah.
Interestingly, at least 90% of the time, when we find we call for a swarm in a tree, 90% of the time it's an oak tree. I have pecan trees, I've never seen them in that one. They really like the oak trees. I couldn't figure it out, and then it had to do with their food source.
Well, how important is a coral vine? Because we have one in the yard, and we noticed there's maybe 15 different variety of.
Coral vine?
It's a coral vine with little pink flowers that.
I saw one of those yesterday. I don't know, because I just saw it yesterday. Little like tubular like flowers on it.
Little heart-shaped flowers that are
Yeah.
pink and
So
tons of
I'll have to
them.
look into that, because I had not seen it before, and I just saw that yesterday on the side yard. I was like, I'll have to see what that is.
So many different kind of
Oh,
bees.
good.
If you can tell the difference between all of them.
Uh-huh.
It's probably 15 varieties.
Nice.
One last thing about the bee sting treatments. I've heard of people being stung on purpose to treat various things. Allergies or what?
Usually for like arthritis,
Oh.
they use bee sting therapy for arthritis, but it is used for lots of other things as well.
Just Google it.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe in it.
You look pretty healthy.
I don't know, I still kinda ache in my joints, but I don't get stung near
As much as
him.
him.
How's your arthritis?
Some days
Could be
better
worse.
than others, huh?
How many colonies are you up to now?
We have 50 boxes, and I don't know how many hives we have.
We actually have 21. We had 48. Last year nationwide, there was horrible honeybee losses, all across the country, nationwide. And they weren't sure why, and there's just been recent articles to come out saying that it's most likely from a virus that infected the bees, off of varroa mites. We fortunately, hadn't had much issues with varroa mite, but some people do. And, so they treat their hives with, pretty natural oxalic acid chemical. The varroa mites have become resistant to,
Oh,
not
great.
the oxalic acid, but another one that people were using, and they think that's contributed to the bee loss. I think the main reason for our bee loss was down by the zoo. They paved a road, that our hives were on, and they sprayed
Oh.
the ditches on both sides, with herbicide. And I'm still convinced that's what took them out, because we lost 13 or 14 hives.
It was strange, we went down there, we harvested honey around Memorial Day, and then we went down there like 2 weeks later, and there were no queens. There were bees, but there were no queens. One hive had a queen in it. So whatever it was affected the queens dramatically. So that if you don't have a queen, your colony is doomed, because there's no babies being born. So yeah, there were people in California that lost 100% of their bees.
Yeah, a lady I worked with at the hospital, she lost 100% of her hives too. Yeah.
Yep, 30 to 48, but we built back up. I was telling her tonight, I'm starting to lean more towards Darwin beekeeping, letting the strongest ones survive. They've been around for 100 million years, 65 to 100 million years, so they know what they're doing. And
If humans don't mess them up.
That's it.
yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, y'all, and there's
Thank
some
you.
What do you have in your van for us to?
If you want more than just the little 2-ounce beer of honey, we do have, larger bottles of honey out there.
Bars and bottles?
Can you buy that?
Yes.
Today.
We really don't have a lot on our agenda, so I think we'll kind of whiff through it so you can, go buy the honey. And I'd love to just see the
See the bee
band,
buggy.
the bee buggy, yeah. But let's give them another round of applause. I know that was amazing. Thank you so much for coming. And this is a little gift for you.
Oh,
There's 2 baker's dozens of ginger treacle.
Sweet.
You're welcome.
They're wonderful.
And there's cookies and water over there for everybody. So if you don't eat it here, you can take a bag of cookies with you if you want. And but that was fascinating. Yeah.